diversity panel. My name is Katharina Jahrling. Honestly, I have nothing in common with blockchain and all these things. I'm a manager for fast-moving consumer goods, and I worked for the last years as a general manager. But I have to say, I'm highly experienced in diversity, as I'm an engineer. And when I started to study in the 80s, I was one of few women doing the engineering, and my parents told me, are you crazy to become an engineer? So here it started, all the gender discussion. And I enjoy a lot to develop talents, male and female, so I have also a lot of experiences here. And I wonder what we have to tell, what you have to tell, and to share your experience for the audience. Who is you? Next to me is sitting Sophia. Sophia is a finance expert, and she recently moved into the blockchain industry. She says, you are an unconventional thinker, and we want to explore this later. And you are a writer. You're from Vietnam and currently located in Munich and Berlin, as far as I understood. Yeah. So, no, later. Then we come to Desiree. Desiree comes from Washington, so from the US, and she has an initiative. She's a digital fellow and a blockchain and digital fellow for Women in Women, for Women International. You will talk a little bit about this. You are a scientist, and you love to derive long-term solutions, I read, and analyzing figures, and then planning strategically, and also process optimization. And I wonder what this has to do with gender parity, how you plan gender parity and to accelerate this topic. Then we have Rhian Lewis from London. You started to make money with bitcoins, is it right? And you are a co-founder of Country Crypto, Crypto. You are a successful women in the blockchain segment branch, and I want to understand from you a little bit more about role modeling. So how can you encourage others? And we have a very courageous man here on the stage. So you are co-founder and project head of ConsenSys. You are from Greater New York, German, actually. So this is German. And you are a highly experienced IT specialist, and you're also a professional leader. This means he led a lot of initiatives across the US, Europe, and Asia. And you say also you are passionate about disruptive technologies and how you can transform change, and also with what business implications it might have for society and also economically. So I think we have great people here on stage to fully discuss the diversity topic. Thank you for being here. So Sophia, now I'll start with you. How unconventional is it to work as a woman in finance?
Thank you. I think first of all I wanted to correct a little bit. I'm not a writer. I do write, but as a hobby only, so I don't consider myself as a professional writer. How unconventional is it for a woman to work in this very heavily male-dominated field called blockchain, ICO, cryptocurrency? I think actually, first of all, we have to distinguish a little bit, but blockchain field is actually very diverse. So here we have a lot of people who are working with like private use cases, consulting use cases, but I'm working more with like public use cases in ICO and cryptocurrency. And I think in ICO and cryptocurrency, there are a lot of men. I've been to many events that, where I can count myself within 1%, 2% of the attendance. And, talking from that, I'm coming from a finance background. And while I was working in finance, I can see myself within 20% of the women who work in finance. So I think, for a woman working in finance in Asia, it's not unconventional to be correct. But for a woman to be working in this technology field, I think is quite unconventional. I never thought of myself being conventional when I was younger, but the older I get, and especially when I become a mother, I started to think about that. Then I think about my history, my past, and I did many things in the past. I made many decisions that I think for a woman, for a girl who comes actually from a very small village in a rural area in Vietnam, this is quite unconventional. When I was in school, when I was in high school, all of my family members told me that I should be a teacher, because in Vietnam, being a teacher means you don't have to pay for tuition fee, and my family was very, very poor, so not paying tuition fee for education is a big thing. I thought about that one, but I don't want to be a teacher, right? Not because I think teacher is not a good job, I just think I don't like being a teacher because I want to be a businesswoman. So I think that's where my unconventional career path started. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Desiree, can you tell us a little bit more about your initiative, Women to Women?
Yeah, definitely. So I am the Blockchain and Digital Currency Fellow at Women for Women International. And Women for Women is an international nonprofit who works with the most marginalized post-conflict groups of women around the world. There's currently, I believe, 8 host countries. A lot of them are in Africa. And so what our CEO, Lori Adams, has a lot of interest in emerging technology. And so she wanted to bring me in to figure out how they could leverage blockchain to empower these women in these areas. So Women for Women's project, what they really do in their program is they have 1-year programs for these women who focus on financial and economic empowerment, so a lot of literacy and financial trainings, and so that's where we're going to try and introduce the blockchain. And one of the issues that we've been encountering is that while, yes, a lot of areas in Africa do have access to technology and internet connectivity, the groups of women that this organization serves does not. So that is the biggest challenge we're encountering right now. So we're really just building the foundation to bring technology and connectivity to these women. And then we're going to look at partnerships like SPEN, BankQ, as just a couple of them, to bring in blockchain-based financial services for largely remittance payments, as well as banking for the unbanked or underbanked.
Thank you so much. Rhian, you are, let me say, a successful woman working in the blockchain area. I think for a lot of people, I can imagine you are a role model working there. So, and I think it's also true that encouraging others means to have or show an exemplary behavior. So what are your experiences with this, or your thoughts? And what is the initiative of London Women for Bitcoin?
Thank you. Well, I don't particularly see myself as a role model. For me, I'm just doing something that I really enjoy and trying to communicate to other people why this is so interesting and compelling. But I do think that if people see other people doing something, they're more likely to take an interest themselves. It's how humans evolved, is by imitating other humans doing things. So I think that it is the personal risk. We hear a lot about how can we make it easier for women to do this, how can we make it easier? But I think there has to be some level of personal responsibility where women and other people seek out subjects that they can be interested in. So I and my friend established London Women in Bitcoin in 2014. after going to meetups organised by a friend of mine in Berlin who was running something similar there, and seeing the difference that she made just having these evenings where women could go along, see other women kind of with Bitcoin wallets, just learn what to do firsthand, rather than, and just have a few female faces doing this. I think that just that imitative thing is more powerful than all the kind of rules or initiatives or anything really. It's just that power of showing people that yes, you can do this too.
Right. So somehow exemplary behavior. Rouven, you had projects all around the world. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience, different behavior of women in working groups around the world, and what is the particular thing you learned from a woman?
Okay, so I think there's the times have changed, I think, over the last 10 years, so because I moved from Germany to Hong Kong and then to the US 5 years ago. So there's a lot of like cultural differences, and I would say like it's hard to map this one thing to like the specific like group there. I think there's a company culture or Deutsche Bank. So it's very hard to pinpoint this to one specific thing. But if you're in Asia, I think hierarchy and other things are like a big thing, and like the diversity in Hong Kong in particular, like being in a German company, being there, it was just Western men. It was like hardly only like client-facing or regulatory-facing. That was like more local roles. Now that was something interesting to observe. It was not something which I would pinpoint like to like one particular company. I think when I'm now in New York, one thing which I really like in New York is it's a very, I feel like very open-minded environment there. I met a lot of women there who are really like thought leaders, who were around for years and create, I think, an environment where it is this like people you can look up to. And I met a lot of them who taught me a lot of things in the early days. When you asked me like the question earlier, it's like, actually I never thought about like who taught me things, like was it now like a man or a woman? Because it was not something I had like in mind, but there are a lot of people like examples like Elizabeth Stark's one of the early ones who like taught me about like Lightning early days, and there's people in particular in this Bitcoin space where like Morgan and then Amber, I think, who's like at JP Morgan like leading this. I think that's great. I think the other thing is like there's a lot of people now really attracting people not just because of this financial. I think Bitcoin was like always very financial market oriented. And I think the great thing is now that people show that the power of like blockchain and Ethereum and others are opening up completely different use cases, which might be more attractive. And I think that's very important to get a different perspective of this technology into people's minds. I think that's super important.
Yeah, and why is it so important? Why is diversity so important, and what do we think is the overall benefit? So besides women like that diversity is talked about, so but what is, I mean, if we have interest from investors, from financial markets, so what is the overall benefit value for diversity?
I think like we have to think about it from different perspectives. If I'm thinking of diversity from the, let's say, blockchain companies' perspective, diversity adds a lot of value to the companies because, for example, in public use cases, you're developing the solution for the community where you want is to be as diverse as possible. And in certain case, you need the diverse perspective. It's not only gender, but also races, different backgrounds, so that people can get input, and then finally you can be closer to your final customers who are going to be a diverse group. So I think from blockchain company, that is the first thing. And the second thing is, there has been some kind of research by some big corporations, such as McKinsey, who did some research on diversity and like financial performance of the companies. And they found out that there is a positive correlation between diversity and financial performance. So especially when you have the high level position in the management, the more diverse the company are, the better they are in terms of financial performance.
And is it valued from the financial market or from investor relations? So as if we value companies today, we say yes, there's a solid financial solution performance, there's a solid financial performance, and maybe there's good vision what the company is going to do in the next 5-10 years or long term. But is it also valued that you have a diverse board or diverse advisory boards? What experiences do we have in the certain countries?
So I think this is an interesting question. I've done some advisory work for a DC-based venture capital firm, and it's been a really amazing opportunity, and it's all male-led, and I think they've done a really great job of bringing in the female perspective. But I think what's so interesting and what I do love about this space too is, like for instance, ICO. Investing in companies really has only been an accredited investor opportunity. So you have a lot of old white men who get to pick what companies succeed. I mean, and no offense, but that's just traditionally how it's been done, at least in the US. So I think that this new paradigm of cryptocurrencies and blockchain, this is going to give a lot of power to people who live outside of that traditional role of who have traditionally been investors. So I think we're going to see a lot of new voices in not only the VC space, but just in terms of any type of fundraising. And I think we'll get, in turn, we'll get a lot of really much more impactful companies out of that. And I think Taylor Monahan said it best when she was recently on Laura Shin's podcast. She had talked about her product, My Ether Wallet, and had said, I developed this for myself. I developed this as a way, so I could perform in this space better. But as it grew and more people ended up using my product, I had to start thinking about bringing in people who are more diverse in order for me to better serve my diverse user, end user. So I thought that was a very powerful quote. And she's just amazing in general, but I think that this space is going to bring in more diversity, and we're going to see a lot more diverse companies and projects flourish because of that.
I'd just like to pick up on something you said just now, which is the accredited investor thing, because I do think this is really true, that 10, 20 years ago, the stereotypical image of somebody on a trading floor was somebody who, a certain sort of guy, effectively. Whereas the great thing, as you mentioned, I started out crypto trading a few years ago, and the nice thing about crypto trading is that anyone can do it. And I'm always surprised by the number of random women who sometimes show up to our meetup and say, the most unlikely women you can possibly imagine, and they say, yes, I trade. And it's just quite interesting, and it's something that anyone with an internet connection and a few dollars can actually do for a bit of fun. It's very democratizing. I think that's really true. And I think it's a tide that's actually quite difficult to stop. And now that people have seen that ordinary people can make investing decisions and influence the course of the way companies develop, it's truly an amazing time to be involved in this.
So I think whether anything is correctly valued at the moment with all these ICOs is a big question generally. I think the cool thing is it's this white paper, but the team is really relevant. And I think we're building some really fundamentally new things. Like I'm working on identity, building a new system. We're not trying to copy something which is out there. So to build this, the diversity, gender is one aspect, but also regional, the way how people think about privacy in Europe or in America is very different. We have someone in Africa who always keeps us reminding us how technology is used there, not used there in the ability. So I think it is really valuable for building better products. That might take longer generally because at the moment we have a very location-wise distributed team, which makes it obviously harder time. So all the challenges, but we really believe that if we build this new like ecosystem with social, economic, political systems to vote and like different governments, I think it's so important that we get a broad perspective from all perspectives, from all sides. That's important.
Thank you. So yesterday was the International Women Day, and when I prepared this panel, I was thinking about this affinity bias. So in the world where I come from, so we try to increase the share of women. So, and very often, what does affinity bias mean? So it's for women, of course, but for men in this case. So people like to stick around with people with the same, let me say, expectations, same membership, same experience, and so on and so on. So, and if this is true, how can we then increase the share of women when we have a male environment? So, what are your ideas for this?
I think it's really difficult to answer. Okay, so the challenge is if, for example, like cryptocurrency space, a lot of men. So if you go to those, let's say, Bitcoin talk, forums, Telegram groups on the ISO, you see so many men, very few women there. So the challenge is when men gather together, this can be broken as well. Because, you know, like they don't have their women perspective to give us. The thing is, how can we solve this problem? How can we bring more women into this fight? I think, so like from the women ourselves, we have to say, okay, for me, I think I can speak for myself because I don't know about other women. But for me in particular, I'm very business pragmatic. It means if I see opportunity in cryptocurrency, ICO space, I will be there because I think this is an opportunity. And I think for now, I've been talking with many women. They've been sending me a lot of messages on LinkedIn, you know, Mr. Group. They said, okay, I want to be in cryptocurrency and ICO, but I'm so afraid because there's so many men. So I said, why should you be afraid? Because if you see the opportunity, you should be there. Because I think nobody can open the door for us, bring us there, you know, your parents won't be there with you forever to bring you there, to tell you this, the opportunity is here, you have to be able to take advantage of the opportunity. So I think we have to somehow, like, you know, as women, we have to change our mindset a little bit.
So one last question to you, and then I'd like to open the question for the audience. One quote. Until we get equality in education, we won't have an equal society. This said Sonia Sotomayor. She was the High Supreme Court in when Obama was still president in the US. And I think with reference, okay, what can we do? I think educational programs and employment programs are essential in order to bring even more women in technology, let me say, branches, but also to foster this whole discussion on gender parity.
So I know that a lot of what we're seeing, the lack of women in this space and a lot of STEM spaces, is a residual effect of how we taught our women 20 plus years ago. I mean, I've experienced that. I mean, as you said, I was a former scientist in another life, and I grew up loving bugs. I've studied ecology and evolution, and I mean, that bugs are my passion still to this day. I have quite a few tarantulas. So I think that's one thing that, you know, women are not taught and not pushed enough in the STEM fields, and I'm sure every woman in this audience has been told once, like, oh, you should play with dolls instead of bugs or instead of G.I. Joes or something like that. We've all been taught that, and you know, I think it all actually stems from how we educate our teachers. I don't know what the case is outside of America, but funding in the educational space in America is very lacking, and so we expect our teachers to really promote women in STEM fields and teach them the skills that are necessary. But you know, we really need to teach our teachers before we expect them to produce like really profound effects. So I really believe that that's where that stems from, and you know, I hope to God in the next 20 years. But I think there's a lot of initiatives that are happening now. In 20 years down the line, I hope to see, 50-50 split in every area in STEM.
So, some questions. Some questions from the audience.
Maybe I already touched on that, but I'm curious, how do you deal socially with being like the only woman in the room that happens?
I'm not sure whether I got your question. So you asked me how I feel?
Yeah.
Or being the only one?
Or if there's like challenges that you know how to deal with in that situation?
With regard to Bitcoin, or with the branch, or with?
Well, in the blockchain or Bitcoin business.
So actually, it made me curious. So of course, I heard a lot of Bitcoin and blockchain and so on. So, but I was never in, so it did not attract me. So now with the preparation and talking to so many people, so I'm really thinking investing money in this. So this is how I refer with you as an industry. One more question. So then maybe one final question.
No question for you. So, well, it is easy to identify problems because, as you rightfully point them out, it's kind of common knowledge where we are right now, and that it takes time to actually improve. How would you identify 3 actionable items to make the space more welcoming for women? Starting from little things and hoping that they will change short term rather than those 20 years or so.
I think one thing is that we read a lot of stories in the press that are quite sensationalist about how the cryptocurrency industry is hostile to women. And I think that's a real shame, because I've never once been made to feel unwelcome or marginalised by men within this community. And I think there's a real danger that women who aren't already involved will see this and be scared of. So I wish in a way that these articles that we've seen recently in the New York Times or whatever by people who are not involved in the community, I just wish they'd stop writing them, really.
I think one thing is really to broaden the perspective of what this technology can do. I think when I follow the German press from being in New York, it's all about Bitcoin and ICOs and how dangerous it is and what a scam and all the other things. So I think to really get people excited about all the possibilities what blockchain can do much broader, I think is so important, because you don't need to be a nerd writing code to be involved. There's so many things in that space nobody has figured out. So it's not too late to just get involved. Governance question, there's economic question, game theory. There's so many cool things from a very deep level, but the applications are so broad. Whether it's journalism on blockchain, whether it's there's so many really cool projects. So I think everybody just needs to understand we need to do a better job, in particular spreading these use cases and these possibilities into the market to get people excited about this, and stop talking just about cryptocurrencies. It was in there.
Yeah, relating to that, there was an article that was saying cryptocurrency does not have so many women because it's too risky and women are not risk takers. I think that's quite not true, because it's not about risk, it's about risk management. So there are a lot of risk, but you have to have risk management in place. For example, if you invest in cryptocurrency, you have to diversify your portfolio, for example. You have to, understand how to use your own private key so that you will not lose it. So all those things I think women are traditionally very good with managing the risk. So again, it's mainstream media make people are very scared of cryptocurrency and so on. I think that's not correct. And the second thing, I think gender equality or gender diversity is a big, huge problem within this blockchain, ICO, cryptocurrency space. But I think the bigger problem is people avoid talking about that one. People don't want to talk openly because maybe political problems, especially if you work for big companies, maybe if you have your boss and male colleagues, you don't want to mention gender problem because they may think you want to use it for marketing thing for yourself. So I think if there is a problem and we don't talk about problem, how can we solve the problem? So I think we start by raising awareness, talk about the problem.
So summary means talking, being a role model, and just doing and being positive, just doing what we want to do and go determined for our own targets and dreams and alignments. Yeah. So I think I've run out of time, or do we have a final? Yeah, okay.
Hi, I was wondering if you can give any examples of crypto projects where the lack of diverse people working on them had a direct impact on how the project was designed and different decisions that were made, if it was an ICO or an identity or a payment blockchain project.
Okay, so you want specific projects with like have a very gender balanced team, right? Is that correct?
I'm asking if the lack of gender equality on the teams working on the project, if you can point to a particular decision that was impacted on the lack of women by the lack of women in the space.
Okay, I can try one project, but I don't want to say the name because I don't want to get into trouble either. But recently there's a project coming from Asia. The whole team is on men, and the problem is they've been using like models with like very sexy, revealing dress at the models to advertise in their ISO videos, and I think this is a huge problem. And this is coming from lack of women in the team, because I think if there's some women in the team, I think the men will be more cautious about that.
Okay. I think I could have other examples from automotive industry where it's always said, okay, you are a woman, you have no idea. I said, yes, but I'm target group, so I have an idea. So it's something disruptive somehow. Okay. So, there are no more questions, so then we are all later in the networking. And a big thank you to you all for this very interesting discussions on gender parity, and we are all here to improve. Thank you so much.